Maria Sharapova's world collapsed in a Los Angeles hotel conference room on March 7th, 2016. The five-time Grand Slam champion sat before a packed room of journalists and delivered news that would end her career as she knew it. She had tested positive for meldonium at the Australian Open just weeks earlier. The drug wasn't some performance enhancer most people had heard of. Meldonium was a heart medication originally developed in Latvia during the Soviet era. Sharapova claimed she'd been taking it legally for 10 years to treat magnesium deficiency and irregular EKG results. The problem? WADA had quietly added it to their banned substances list on January 1st, 2016. What followed was a masterclass in damage control gone wrong. Sharapova's team argued she never received proper notification about the ban. They claimed the drug was buried deep in WADA's technical documents. But investigators found multiple warnings had been sent to players and their teams throughout 2015. The ITF wasn't impressed with her ignorance defense. The ITF handed down a crushing 2-year suspension in June 2016. The financial carnage was immediate and brutal. Nike suspended their relationship within hours. Tag Heuer chose not to renew their expired contract. Porsche also suspended their partnership. But Sharapova fought back, appealing to CAS, who reduced her ban to 15 months in October 2016, finding she bore no significant fault. Marin Cilic's career nearly derailed over something as innocent as glucose tablets. In May 2013, the Croatian was riding high at world number 24 when he tested positive for nicothamide at the Munich ATP tournament. The banned stimulant wasn't something he'd deliberately taken. It was hidden inside chloramine glucose tablets he'd purchased at a French pharmacy. Cilic had been feeling fatigued during matches and thought the glucose supplements would give him natural energy. What he didn't realize was that these particular tablets contained nicothamide, a substance that had been on WADA's prohibited list since 2004. The drug acts as a respiratory and cardiac stimulant, originally developed for medical emergencies but banned in sports for its performance-enhancing effects. The timing was devastating. On June 26, 2013, Cilic withdrew from his second-round match at Wimbledon, officially citing a knee injury but actually accepting a provisional suspension the same day. The ITF showed little sympathy for his ignorance. In September 2013, they handed down a 9-month suspension, accepting that the ingestion was inadvertent, but arguing he should have been more careful. His legal team immediately appealed to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, arguing the violation was completely unintentional. In October 2013, CAS agreed, reducing his ban to just 4 months. They found that while he bore some fault for not checking the ingredients, there was no intent to cheat. If you're loving this video, subscribe now and help us hit 5,000 tennis fans by month's end. Sara Errani's doping case reads like something from a soap opera, but the consequences were very real. In February 2017, the former French Open finalist tested positive for letrozole, a hormone blocker typically used to treat breast cancer. Her explanation was as unusual as it was heartbreaking. Errani claimed the banned substance entered her system through contaminated food prepared at home, where her mother was taking letrozole for breast cancer treatment. According to her defense, the medication somehow transferred into a family meal through cross-contamination. It sounded far-fetched, but the tribunal accepted her contamination story. The Italian initially received what seemed like a lenient 2-month suspension in August 2017. The ITF accepted her contamination explanation and ruled the violation was unintentional. Errani served her ban from August to October 2017, missing the US Open but returning for the fall season. However, the story didn't end there. Both Errani and the Italian anti-doping agency appealed the decision to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. In June 2018, CAS delivered a harsh verdict, extending her suspension to 10 months. While they accepted the contamination was accidental, they ruled she should have been more careful about potential exposure to banned substances in her household. The case highlighted the strict liability principle in anti-doping, where athletes are responsible for everything in their system, regardless of intent. Simona Halep's story took a turn nobody expected. In October 2022, while she was fighting to get back to the top after injuries, the ETA announced she'd tested positive for roxadustat at the US Open. This wasn't just any violation. Roxadustat is a serious blood-boosting agent that increases red blood cell production. Similar to EPO, the Romanian was stunned. She immediately declared her innocence and vowed to clear her name. Then it got worse. In May 2023, she was hit with a second charge for irregularities in her athlete biological passport that suggested a pattern of doping over time. The tennis world was in disbelief. In September 2023, the tribunal delivered its verdict, a 4-year ban. They found Halep had committed intentional doping violations, though they accepted her contaminated supplement claim. They just didn't believe it explained the levels found in her system. At 31, a 4-year ban meant her career was effectively over. Halep immediately appealed to CAS, desperately fighting to save her career. Her legal team argued the science was flawed and the contamination was real. In March 2024, CAS delivered a stunning reversal. The ban was reduced to 9 months, and since she'd already served that time, she was free to play immediately. The court found she was at no significant fault or negligence for the positive test. This one stayed hidden for years, until Agassi himself blew the lid off. In his 2009 autobiography, Open, the American 8-time Grand Slam champion admitted to using crystal meth in 1997 and lying to escape a ban. The revelation was a bombshell nobody saw coming. According to Agassi, his assistant Slim introduced him to the drug during a dark period when his ranking had plummeted to 141 and his marriage to Brooke Shields was crumbling. He described taking the drug and feeling a tidal wave of euphoria. Then came the phone call that could have ended everything. The ATP informed him he'd failed a drug test. Crystal meth meant a suspension and career devastation. In desperation, Agassi concocted a lie. He wrote to the ATP claiming he'd accidentally drunk from a soda spiked by Slim, and they bought it. The case was thrown out. Agassi escaped punishment completely. 12 years later, the tennis world was stunned. Here was one of the sport's greatest champions admitting to both drug use and deception. WADA wanted answers from the ATP. Murat Safin said Agassi should return his titles and prize money, but nothing could be done. The 8-year statute of limitations had long passed. Agassi went on to resurrect his career spectacularly after 1997, winning 5 of his 8 Grand Slams and completing the career Grand Slam. Jordi Marcé-Vidri's downfall was part of one of tennis's biggest corruption scandals. In 2021, the Spanish player received a crushing 15-year ban and $100,000 fine from the ETIA after being convicted of match fixing as part of a case involving organized crime. This wasn't just about tennis anymore. It was about criminal enterprises infiltrating professional sport. Marcé-Vidri pleaded guilty to corruption charges in Spanish court in 2022, receiving a 2-year suspended prison sentence. The ITIA described his case as one of the most significant infiltrations of tennis by organized crime they'd ever encountered. He wasn't working alone. The investigation revealed a sophisticated network that had been manipulating matches across multiple tournaments. Marcé-Vidri was one of 6 Spanish players caught in the dragnet, but his 15-year ban was among the harshest penalties handed down. The syndicate had been operating for years, targeting lower-level tournaments where scrutiny was minimal. What made this case particularly damaging was the systematic nature of the corruption. This wasn't a desperate player making a one-off bad decision. It was organized crime treating tennis matches like commodities to be bought and sold. The Spanish authorities worked closely with tennis integrity officials to uncover the full scope of the operation. Marcé-Vidri's ban effectively ended his career at age 30, serving as a stark warning about the consequences of getting involved with criminal organizations. The Swiss Miss's second retirement came with a shocking revelation. In November 2007, just months after losing in the 3rd round at Wimbledon, Martina Hingis called a press conference that stunned the tennis world. Fighting back tears, she announced she'd tested positive for cocaine at Wimbledon and was retiring immediately rather than fight the charges. The 5-time Grand Slam champion vehemently denied ever taking drugs, calling the accusation horrendous and monstrous. She claimed the trace amounts found, just 42 nanograms per milliliter, were so low that contamination was the only explanation. Her private hair test came back negative, supporting her innocence claims. But the ITF's rules were clear. Any amount meant a 2-year ban. At 27, Hingis decided she couldn't face years of legal battles. She'd already retired once due to injuries in 2002 and made a successful comeback. But now, this would define her exit. In January 2008, the ITF made it official. 2-year ban, no appeal filed. The tennis world was divided. This was a player who'd been world number 1 at 16, won 5 Grand Slams by 20, and revolutionized women's tennis with her tactical brilliance. Cocaine use seemed completely out of character. The cocaine case remains a mystery. The amount was so minimal that many testing programs wouldn't even report it. Hingis never wavered from her innocence claim, but also never fought to clear her name. Mark Fornell Mestres holds a record no tennis player wants: the longest ban in the sport's modern history. In 2021, the Spanish player was handed a staggering 22 years and 6 months suspension for match fixing, along with a €250,000 fine. At 30 years old, it was effectively a lifetime sentence. Fornell Mestres was the ringleader in the same Spanish organized crime syndicate that ensnared Jordi Marcé Vidri. But his role was more extensive, his crimes more systematic. He admitted to multiple match-fixing offenses spanning several years, manipulating results across various tournaments for financial gain. The Spanish courts weren't lenient either. Alongside his tennis ban, Fornell Mestres received a 2-year suspended prison sentence. The criminal conviction meant this wasn't just about sporting integrity. It was about serious criminal activity that had infiltrated professional tennis. What made his case particularly egregious was the scale of the operation. Investigators found evidence of systematic corruption involving multiple players, tournaments, and betting syndicates. Fornell Mestres wasn't just fixing his own matches, he was recruiting others and coordinating a network of corruption. The 22-year, 6-month ban means Fornell Mestres won't be eligible to return to tennis until 2043, when he'll be 52 years old. It's a sentence designed to send a clear message. Tennis will not tolerate organized crime infiltrating the sport. Of the €250,000 fine, €200,000 was suspended. If you're loving this video, you click on the Super Thanks button and support our channel. Daniel Collerer's career didn't end with a graceful bow at center court. It ended with a historic punishment that made him tennis's first cautionary tale. In May 2011, the ITF dropped the hammer, announcing he was permanently expelled for match-fixing violations. This wasn't your average suspension. He got slapped with tennis's first ever lifetime ban for match fixing. The Austrian's crimes were systematic and brazen. Between October 2009 and July 2010, Collerer made invitations to fix matches on 5 separate occasions. He wasn't just corrupting his own results. He was actively trying to recruit other players into the world of match manipulation. The evidence was overwhelming. At the time of his ban, Collerer was ranked outside the top 100, his career already spiraling. He'd previously been suspended in 2006 for 6 months for bad behavior and abusive conduct. When the lifetime ban news broke, it was a seismic event. This wasn't just another violation, it was the first lifetime ban for match fixing in tennis history. The Court of Arbitration for Sport upheld the ban in 2012, though they set aside the original $100,000 fine since he didn't benefit financially from his crimes. The message was clear: tennis would not tolerate corruption, regardless of a player's ranking or financial gain. Since then, Collerer has been completely shut out of professional tennis. His chances of any comeback are exactly 0. When the Frenchman tested positive for cocaine in 2009, his excuse was so outrageous that nobody believed it could be true. But sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. Back in March 2009, Gasquet had withdrawn from the Miami Masters with a shoulder injury. That night, he went to a nightclub to see a French DJ perform. According to his testimony, he met a woman and kissed her multiple times throughout the night. Weeks later, he got the call. Positive test for cocaine. He faced a 2-year ban that would destroy his career. At first, the ITF suspended him provisionally. He missed the French Open and Wimbledon, but Gasquet had an explanation that seemed pulled from a bad movie script. He claimed the only way cocaine entered his system was through kissing the woman, who must have been using the drug. The amount detected was minimal, no more than a grain of salt. Incredibly, an independent tribunal bought it. In July 2009, they ruled he'd been inadvertently contaminated and reduced his ban to time already served, just 2.5 months. But WADA and the ITF weren't satisfied. They appealed to CAS, seeking a proper ban. In December, CAS delivered their verdict. Gasquet was completely cleared. They found it impossible for him to have known that kissing someone could lead to contamination. The cocaine kiss defense actually worked, becoming legendary in anti-doping circles. From meldonium to match fixing, these cases show how quickly careers can crumble when players cross the line. Whether through ignorance, desperation, or greed, each ban sent shockwaves through tennis and changed how the sport polices itself. These stories remind us that in professional tennis, reputation takes years to build but only seconds to destroy. You can watch our next video here